I will be back.
The last words spoken by their original problematic travelling companion were now displayed before the party, written in fresh blood. Yet no one seemed more concerned than the gnome's killer himself, Doris. He quickly led them all back outside and sent orders to his people to prepare for anything, no longer knowing what this psychopathic gnome may be capable of. Given the party's enthusiasm to help Doris deal with their former problem player, he has one of his Kenku agents arrive via Sending Stone with a magical potion that's almost completed. All it needs now is a drop of dragon blood. Doris informs Nadar that he had planned to save this for later, but considering the possible threat they could be facing involving dark magic, they needed every advantage they could get right now. So with hesitation, Nadar accepts the mysterious promise of power and downs the potion. Yet something seems wrong, as he feels some disturbance with his body, and just as it feels like he's about to explode, he sprouts some wings. More than happy with his new appendages, Nadar enjoys zooming around in the sky, while Dane and Palin finish up their planning with Doris. Their favourite boss gives them an allowance to purchase some magic items to gear up for Zook's impending return. Acting exactly like the spoiled little kids with Daddy's credit card that they absolutely are, they make it rain in the magic shop, both metaphorically and literally. Once they are loaded up with all their glowing knickknacks, they make their way back outside, only to quickly find themselves being harassed once again by one of the same punks that Dane gave a beating to in the tavern last night. Evidently hoping to reclaim some dignity for himself and his unattending compatriots, he decides his best means of achieving this is attempting to throw insults at them publicly. Unfortunately, he once again underestimates the party, as they proceed to mock him back, far more effectively, and once again leave him the laughingstock amongst the crowd. Too short-sighted and angry to recognise the futility of his continued temper tantrum, the punk raises his fists and prepares to ensure his day only continues to get worse. But just as the brawl is about to begin, the man notices his nose starting to bleed all of a sudden. The party's momentary pause of confusion is suddenly interrupted by the head of the punk exploding. Before anyone has time to react to the sudden tone shift, a wall of flame circles the bloodstained group, trapping all but the winged dragonborn, as Zook himself steps through the flames with a menacing smile. It seems their ex-dead companion has quite the devil's upgrade for his previously shattered hand. The party quickly tries to reason with him, but unfortunately, the gnome appears as deaf to reason now as he was back then. He only seems interested in making a single offer to the party: join him once more and help him get his revenge against Doris. Somehow, the offer doesn't quite resonate with the party. Furious at their refusal to reclaim their titles of glorified meat shields, Zook attacks, and the party is forced to defend themselves against the new powers he appears to have acquired somehow. Thankfully, all the time the party has spent recently digging graveyards and slaying dragons has proven to strengthen their skill, allowing them to keep up with the psychopath's new power. The fight begins with a slight miscalculation or two, such as Palin attempting to throw a firebomb he just brought and realizing Zook is now utterly immune to fire. Another example is when Dane uses one of his many magic patches from his new robe of useful items to create a pit beneath Zook's feet, and learns the hard way that he can now hover where he stands. Thankfully, these ineffective attempts do provide Nadar, soaring high above the circle of flames, the distraction he needs to nosedive at full speed and use his blade to slice Zook right down the middle. As Zook's body lays still once more, a spiritual form of what appears to be a pit fiend seeps out of his body and simply informs the party that this isn't the last they will see of the Grave Lord. Then it disappears, leaving behind Zook's body and returning his hand to normal as the possession ends. After the massive commotion caused from the whole fight, it's no surprise Doris comes sprinting around the corner when he does, just in time to see the shadow of the supposed Grave Lord before it fades away. As the party proceeds to recap what he just missed, there's a clear sign of relief that Doris no longer has to worry about all this unnerving devil and possession crap that he hates so much. Considering how much worse he was after he died, Doris and the party all come to the mutual agreement that it might be best to spend a small fortune to bring Zook back to life at Pellin's old Church of Sunlight, rather than leaving him to get possessed again, or worse. One quick trip to the church later, Pellin has a reunion with the head of the church, Mother Greymane, an elder centaur who worships Liberia, the goddess of life and sunlight. Thankfully, she doesn't appear to make any connection between Pellin and all those dug-up graves outside. She agrees to revive their gnome friends, and is even willing to waive the entire fee, in return for Pellin at least considering a chance to return to the church and living up to his oaths once more. Pellin does promise to, but the party notices the crossed fingers behind his back, and suspect he only cares about saving a few bucks on the revive. And with that, everyone is once again reunited with their least favourite redhead. As the Loot Goblin and Murder Hobo meet for the first time, it becomes clear almost instantly that the two don't like a single thing about the other. It doesn't take much for all to notice that the gnome, coming back from the dead multiple times in a row now, has clearly had an influence on his confidence and his ego. Somehow managing to be even more arrogant and rude with his false sense of immortality, he doesn't even hesitate to give Doris a hard time about getting his Staff of Fire back. Naturally, Doris can still put the gnome back in his place, but knowing a pit fiend may return someday, he figures if a psychopathic gnome is going to be in the middle of that fight, it may as well be on their side. So, with some clear warnings and threats promised to Zook if he ever gets out of line again, Doris lets him know the Staff of Fire is actually being stored on his sister's ship, the Stormtooth, at the moment, and gives them all permission to make their way across the city to retrieve it. When Zook starts getting a little too mouthy to the party again, Pellin decides to tie and gag the little snot, as Nadar watches on jealously, before Dane decides to get out some of that old reliable barbarian rage that he has rightfully developed for the arsonist. As fate would have it, however, the barbarian would get his chance to unleash some of that rage, as they hear the bells of the city start to ring frantically. Standing there in the large open street, as the people around them begin to run and flee, the party lay eyes upon the full-blooded, adult red dragon coming to land before them, its eyes fixated on the flying dragonborn. It seems the party had been right to suspect that the red dragon they killed in that cave did seem to be a bit smaller than the stories they had heard would have implied. Furthermore, as Nadar looked upon the dragon's hateful stare, it occurred to him that bringing some of the child's blood back with him to Dale, and enhancing its potency from a mysteriously magical potion, had resulted in the rough equivalent of sending the dragon his GPS location. With seemingly no other choice now, the party draws their weapons and prepares for the fight of their lives. Zook has forgotten about in the chaos, left bound and gagged on the sidelines, and frankly, with his impulsive nature, it might have been for the best. Coming in hot behind the dragon with a hot behind of his own, the party sees Firefart using his homebrewed nitrous to keep at speed behind the apex predator, here to offer a helping hand to his new friends in their time of greatest peril. Or perhaps just to chase a big exciting dragon, who can say? As for the party themselves, Nadar takes to the skies, ensuring he keeps the flames of the dragon focused on him, where he has the room and speed in the air to keep himself from being cooked. Meanwhile, Palin wastes no time getting to the flank of the distracted creature, wanting to be as far from the burning end of this monster as he possibly can be. Even the little kobold that is definitely Kane proceeds to get involved, having a go at biting a few toes. But the mighty dwarven barbarian, Dane Goldstone himself, summons every ounce of rage that he can, harbouring all the way back to defending his little brother from the rest of his family in his childhood, as he charges head-on to the dragon with all of his might, doing his best to pull the full attention of the dragon back off Nadar. The fight is brutal and damn near fatal for most of them in the end. Poor Nadar was the first to go down, swatted out of the sky, directly into someone's open window, and only surviving thanks to having the full impact of his unconscious body crashing into a featherbed. The next to fall was Palin the Paladin, losing his footing as he attempted to block the stray swipe from the dragon's tail, resulting in such a powerful impact to the tool made to absorb it that his own shield collided with his head from recoil and signed him up for the longest nap of his life. Dane's little kobold buddy, that he would never mistake for another one, demonstrated their long-lasting loyalty to one another by managing to hang in there with the dwarf for quite some time. But alas, it seemed a kobold's intelligence is always their greatest weakness, when he eventually forgot to dodge an incoming blow and was taken out of the fray. In fitting irony, Firefart the flying kobold followed suit right after. So in the end, those too fearful or too trapped to flee their homes were left to watch as the lone dwarf stood against the raging dragon. Few were hopeful at first, some even averting their gazes. But as the dragon's flames only grew hotter, its hits only grew stronger, and still the dwarf did not fall. The watching crowd felt the shift in the air. Dane slashed with his great axe again and again, his body screaming for mercy at the sweet release of death, held only at bay by his unrelenting mastery of his rage. Even when his own weapon broke, Dane's spirit held strong. And when the dragon fell to its back heels, Dane jumped up on the back of the red dragon, grabbing the beast by the horns and crashing it to the ground. As the dust settles, and the rest of the party slowly gets back to their feet, Dane alone stands upon the head of the slain adult red dragon, and slowly but surely, the entire street emerges from broken homes and rubble to applaud their saviors of the city. One by one, the party comes to stand side by side, conveniently leaving out Zook, of course, and basking in both their glory and the knowledge that from now on, they will be seen and remembered as legendary heroes of the city. Or so they thought.